everyone, this is Sam. I'm here in Yosemite National Park. You can just see Half Dome behind me back there, and I'm going to teach you how to play Darwin. So there are three types of cards in Darwin. These four stacks here are the resources. So this makes it the bank. You've got air, water, sun, and nutrients. Then there are four environments: ocean, desert, rainforest, and sky. So you've got resources, environments, and then adaptation cards. So the adaptation cards come in four different decks. You've got reproduce, they're purple with an egg on them. You've got the green eat cards, which can be either red or green on the other side. You've got the blue survive cards and the yellow strategy cards. Now, as you play Darwin, you'll be trying to create a surviving species of your own by combining those different adaptation cards. But to get the adaptation cards, you'll have to pay the resources to get them. We'll go over that later. In order to have a surviving species, you have to meet three conditions. First, you need an eat score of 3. Each eat card has some icons in the upper right hand corner that tell you how many it adds to your eat score. So for instance, this card adds 2 to your eat score because it has 2 of the meat icon. This card adds 1 to your eat score. So if you had both of these cards in your species, both of these adaptations, you would have enough eat scores for a surviving species. Some eat cards are red and have the predator icon, which looks like a tooth. The way that the predator score works is if I had these two cards, then my predator score would be 2, one for this tooth icon and one for this tooth icon. Then everyone else in the game needs to have a survive score of at least 2 to be a surviving species. The blue survive adaptations increase your species' survive score by the number of shields in the upper right hand corner. For instance, a species with both of these cards would have a survive score of 3. The blue survive adaptations increase your species' survive score by the number of shields in the upper right hand corner. For instance, if you had these two cards in your species, your survive score would increase by 3, 2 for this card and 1 for this card. Finally, you need 1 reproduce card to have a surviving species. You can get any of these 8 reproduce cards. One of them will be enough for a surviving species. You can get more than 1 if you want. So to recap, the 3 survival conditions are 1, an eat score of at least 3, 2, a survive score equal to the best predator score of any other player in the game, and 3, a reproduce score of at least 1. This is how to set up the game at the beginning of play. Over here, the resources are face up in 4 piles, and we'll put the ocean card on top of the air to start the game, meaning that we're starting in the ocean. The 8 reproduce cards are face up on the table, and the 3 separate adaptation decks have been shuffled and are face down. This is the bank. At any one time, we're in one of the 4 environments, and in that environment, 1 resource is scarce. For instance, in the ocean, air is scarce, as noted on the card. When we're in the ocean, nobody can pick up air resources from the bank. Additionally, when the environment changes, say that we move from the ocean to the desert, now no one can pick up water resources, and everyone forfeits the water that they have and puts it back in the bank. During the game, you'll keep unplayed adaptation cards in your hand. You'll keep your resources in front of you, and adaptations that have been added to your species will also be in front of you. Each time you take a turn, you go through 4 phases. First, you pick up cards. You can either pick up any 2 available resources from the bank, or you can pick up 2 cards from the eat and survive piles. So on this turn, I'm going to pick up a survive card, check it out, and then pick up an eat card. Alright, now I move on to the second phase of my turn, which is playing adaptations. So you can see that each adaptation has a cost in resources displayed on the left side. So for instance, this double jointed card costs 2 sun resources. So, since I have 2 sun resources available, during this second phase of my turn, I can play this card down to my species by giving 2 sun adaptations to the bank. When you add an adaptation to your species, read the title and the description aloud. If I had enough resources to keep adding adaptations to my species, I could continue, but I don't. So I move on to the third phase of my turn. The third phase is that I pick up 1 yellow survive card for every eat adaptation I played on that turn. Since I played 1 eat adaptation on this turn, I'll pick up 1 yellow survive card. Now I move on to the 4th phase of my turn, which is discarding down to 3. Since I have more than 3 adaptations in my hand, I have to discard to a discard pile until I only have 3 adaptations in my hand. Unlike the eat, survive, and strategy adaptations, the purple reproduce adaptations aren't cards that you pick up and add to your hand. Instead, they're always face up on the table and available to be added to anyone's species. However, notice that each of these cards is only available in a specific environment. For instance, this card is only available in the sky. So, if we are in the sky environment, During the second phase of your turn, you could pay the 4 resources required and take this card and add it to your species. You'll notice that each of these reproduce cards requires the scarce resource in the environment that it's available. So, in order to add one of these reproduce cards to your species, you'll have to use these strategy cards. On any turn, you can decide that instead of going through those 4 phases, you instead want to change the environment. So you pick one of the 3 environments that aren't the current environment, and you change it, and everyone with the new scarce resource has to put it back in the bank. There are 4 types of cards in this yellow strategy deck. One type of card lets you change the environment. For instance, with this card, by playing 1 water resource, I can immediately change the environment to the ocean without using up the rest of my turn. I can still continue to play adaptations. With this kind of card, I can buy reproduce cards even when I'm not in the environment indicated on the card. For instance, with ocean fertility, I could buy this card that's normally available in the ocean regardless of the current environment. Again, you can only enact these rules if the card has been added to your species, not just if it's in your hand. A third type of card gives you a free resource when you're buying a new card. For instance, with the scuba spider, I have plus air. That means that if I were buying this card here, instead of paying 2 water and 2 air, I would just have to pay 2 water and 1 air, because having the scuba spider in my species gives me a free air. That can be used as many times as you want, even on the same turn. Finally, some cards let you hold on to a resource even when it's the scarce resource. For instance, if I had closed loop, it says hold on to nutrients. So if I have nutrients in my hand or on the table, and someone changes the environment to the sky, all of the other players have to put their nutrients back in the bank, but I can keep mine. I still am not allowed to pick up the scarce resource, but I don't lose these immediately. Alright, so how does the game end? If I begin my turn with a surviving species, meaning I have the 3 survival conditions, 3 eat, enough to match the highest opposing predator, and a reproduce card, then I can use my entire turn to, instead of going through the 4 phases, say, I will survive. If I say I will survive, every other player in the game gets 1 more turn, and then the game ends. Everyone who has a surviving species at that point will be a survivor, and every surviving player describes their species and how they combine the adaptations to make an incredible new species which they get to name. Creativity is encouraged. If there are multiple survivors, the survivor with the least number of adaptation cards, which is all of the cards that belong to your species, is the winner of the game. Alright, now you know how to play Darwin. Here's a couple extra rules for special circumstances. If the Eat, Survive, or Strategy decks run out, sort the discard pile into the respective decks, shuffle each set of adaptations, and return them to the bottom of the appropriate decks. If there are no surviving species after the last round of turns, the game continues as if no one had called I will survive. Finally, you may buy multiple reproduce adaptations, even though you only need 1 to survive. Have fun playing Darwin, and make sure to share your favorite species to the Facebook page for Darwin the Game.